Hi there, welcome back to Haunting Vales. Tonight, we turn our gaze to a case that begins not with a scream, but with a pen. A golden pen, gleaming with elegance, yet hiding within it a clue far darker than its shine. What seems like a simple object soon unravels into a web of deceit, betrayal, and hidden motives. To Poirot, even the smallest detail can whisper the loudest truth, and this pen may write the story of a crime long concealed. This is the clue of the golden pen, a Hercule Poirot mystery. And before we uncover the truth inked in shadows, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because more mysteries await, only here on Haunting Vales. Chapter 1. The Golden Arrival. It was a damp morning in London, the kind of morning where the fog clung to one's coat like a persistent shadow, and the River Thames rolled by in heavy silence. In the midst of this chill, Hercule Poirot sat in his immaculate apartment, a steaming cup of chocolate chaude resting carefully upon its saucer. The little Belgian detective was, as always, the picture of composure. His mustaches were waxed to perfection, his patent leather shoes gleamed, and even the way he stirred his drink was measured and deliberate. And yet, there was something in his eyes that betrayed an unusual restlessness. Poirot's fingers tapped lightly on the armrest of his chair, as though they sought a puzzle not yet solved, a riddle not yet uttered. The doorbell rang. "Mon ami," Poirot called out. Even before Hastings could enter, "You are late." Only by 3 minutes, but late nonetheless. In punctuality, Hastings is the twin sister of order, and order is the first cousin of truth. Captain Hastings, loyal companion and narrator of many of Poirot's adventures, smiled awkwardly as he set down his hat. "Sorry, old chap. The fog is devilishly thick out there. One can barely see one's own shoes." Poirot waved this aside with an elegant flick of the hand. The fog of London, Hastings, is nothing compared to the fog that surrounds the human heart. But come, sit. We have business. Hastings raised an eyebrow. Business? Another case. Poirot leaned forward, his eyes glittering. A letter, Hastings. A most curious letter. Delivered this morning, without a return address. It was slid under my door, most discreetly. He handed over an envelope of pale cream paper, upon which a single symbol was embossed, a golden quill, its tip glinting faintly in the morning light. Hastings turned it over in his hands, intrigued. "Rather fancy, isn't it? Open it, mon ami." Inside was a note, written in looping, elegant script. The words shimmered faintly, as though traced by the hand of someone who relished theatrics. Asterisk to Monsieur Hercule Poirot. The time has come to test the finest of minds. A crime has been committed, and only the golden pen knows the truth. If you're the detective you claim to be, follow the trail. You will find your first clue at the reading room of the British Museum. Signed, a friend of justice. Asterisk. Hastings frowned. What do you make of that? Poirot's mustaches twitched with amusement. "It is a challenge, mon ami. And I, Hercule Poirot, do not ignore a challenge, especially when it comes so carefully crafted. There is art in this handwriting, precision in the choice of words. Already I sense a mind as fond of order as my own, and yet a mind that plays with danger." Hastings shook his head. "Remind me a bit of that ABC fellow, don't you think? The one who taunted us with those dreadful letters." "Exactment," Poirot exclaimed. "The ABC murders. But you notice, Hastings, the tone here is less taunting, more invitational. The author wishes to be admired, not despised. They leave us not with dread, but with intrigue. And the symbol, the golden pen, it is the mark of someone who sees crime as a narrative, a story to be written." Hastings glanced uneasily at the letter. "I don't like it, Poirot. It feels theatrical, like something out of one of those Agatha Christie novels people can't put down. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Murder on the Orient Express. You know the sort. A bit too clever for its own good. Poirot smiled. Ah, Hastings. But have you not observed that life often imitates art? Come, we go to the British Museum. There we shall see if the golden pen truly writes the truth. The British Museum stood like a temple of knowledge, its great columns vanishing into the fog. Inside, the air smelled faintly of parchment and dust, the whispers of centuries preserved in silence. Poirot and Hastings entered the reading room, its vast dome arching overhead, and rows upon rows of desks stretching before them like soldiers in a formation of learning. Poirot's keen eyes scanned the room. Every detail was noted. The scholarly gentlemen buried in tomes, the clerks hurriedly copying notes, the quiet rustle of paper. And then he saw it, a glimmer of gold. On one of the desks lay a fountain pen, golden from nib to barrel. It was placed carefully atop a stack of papers, as though waiting for a hand to claim it. Poirot approached with measured steps, Hastings close behind. "Do not touch it," Poirot whispered. "Observe first." The pen was engraved with an intricate pattern, spirals that looped into letters, letters that resolved into words. Hastings bent close. "Good Lord, Poirot," it says. "Clue the first." Poirot nodded gravely. "So the game begins." He lifted the papers beneath the pen. They were no ordinary documents. Instead, they formed a diary of sorts, a narrative of a crime yet to be revealed. Written in that same elegant script, the pages described a gathering at a country house, a quarrel over inheritance, and the sudden death of a matriarch. "Listen," Hastings Poirot read aloud. "The lady was found in her study, her heart stilled by poison. But who placed the vial upon her desk? Was it the jealous son, the indebted nephew, the bitter companion? The truth lies hidden, and the pen alone will reveal it." Hastings shivered. "Poirot, this is no ordinary clue. It reads like the beginning of a story." Poirot tapped the page with precision. "It is more than a story. It is a crime in progress, dressed in the garb of fiction. Someone writes the tale even as they commit it. And if we do not intervene, Hastings, the next chapter will be written in blood." At that moment, a shadow fell across the desk. A woman in dark green stood nearby, her gloved hands clutching a notebook. She was elegant, severe, her gaze sharp as a dagger. "You should not meddle," she said quietly. Hastings stiffened. "I beg your pardon." Poirot's eyes glittered. "Madam, I am Hercule Poirot. When a crime calls to me, I cannot ignore it. Perhaps you are connected with this golden pen." The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. "All I will say is this. Stories have power, Monsieur Poirot. Some stories are better left unread." Before Hastings could press her, she turned and vanished into the crowd of scholars, leaving only the faint scent of violets in her wake. Poirot straightened his tie, thoughtful. "Note her, Hastings. Every gesture, every word. That lady is a character in this tale, whether she wills it or not." Hastings exhaled heavily. "Well, old chap, if this is the first clue, what comes next?" Poirot carefully pocketed the golden pen. "Next, mon ami, we must follow where the story leads. And like all stories, it will lead us to the truth. But beware, Hastings, the hand that writes this tale also holds the power to erase lives." The cab ride back was thick with tension. Poirot sat in silence, eyes closed, the golden pen resting in his gloved hand. Hastings watched him uneasily. At last Poirot spoke, his voice low. "You see, Hastings, this writer, they play the role of fate. They believe themselves author, and we are but characters in their drama. But Hercule Poirot will not be written into another's plot. Non, mon ami. I am the one who will write the ending." Hastings gave a nervous laugh. "Sounds rather like something out of Curtain, Poirot's last case." Poirot smiled faintly, but there was no mirth in his eyes. "Perhaps. But let us hope this pen does not write my final chapter. The fog thickened outside, and London seemed to blur into a dream. The city, usually bustling with certainty, now felt like a stage upon which invisible hands were scripting each moment. Somewhere, the writer of the golden pen watched, waiting, weaving a tale of poison, inheritance, and death. And Hercule Poirot, master of order and truth, had accepted the invitation to play. The golden arrival had been made. The curtain had lifted, and the first act of the mystery had begun. Chapter 2. The Ink of Suspicion. The golden pen lay upon Poirot's desk like an artifact unearthed from some ancient tomb. It gleamed faintly in the lamplight, its weight heavier than gold should ever feel, as though the mystery contained within pressed down on its slender frame. Poirot regarded it with the same careful intensity he might afford a priceless diamond. Hastings sat opposite him, watching the detective's every movement. "You've been staring at it for hours, old chap," Hastings muttered. "Surely it's just a pen." "A bit fancy, yes, but still only a pen." Poirot shook his head slowly. "No, Hastings, it is never only anything. Consider, a pen is the tool of the writer, the scribe, the teller of truths or of lies. To give me such an object as a clue, it is deliberate, symbolic, and symbols, Hastings, are the footprints of the mind that leaves them." Hastings frowned, scratching at his chin. "It all seems a bit too theatrical for my taste. This diary you read, it's like someone is staging one of those Agatha Christie mysteries. Poison in the study, quarrels over money, suspicious relations. Reminds me of Peril at In-House, if you ask me." Poirot's eyes narrowed, the faintest gleam of satisfaction passing over them. "Yes, you noticed the pattern. Very good, Hastings. It is a performance. Our mysterious writer craves an audience, and he tapped his chest lightly. "I am their chosen reader. They set the stage. I must decide whether the play ends in triumph or tragedy." Before Hastings could reply, a knock sounded at the door. Poirot rose, his movements brisk but contained. Hastings followed him to the entrance, where a uniformed constable stood stiffly. He removed his helmet as a mark of respect. "Beg your pardon, sir. Scotland Yard sent me to deliver this personally. Superintendent Battle requests your immediate attention." Poirot's eyebrows lifted. "Battle? He is not a man who wastes words. If he calls, something is amiss." The constable handed over a sealed envelope. Poirot opened it carefully. Inside was a brief note, written in Battle's neat but blunt script. "Asterisk Poirot. A suspicious death has occurred at Greystone Manor in Hampstead. Lady Winthrop found dead in her study. Cause uncertain. Family divided. Rumors of poison. Come at once. Asterisk." Hastings let out a low whistle. "By Jove, that sounds exactly like the scene in the diary." "Exactly, Hastings. Our anonymous writer did not invent a tale. They described a crime that has already been committed." Poirot's voice grew quiet. "We are not merely solving a puzzle. We are walking into a story being written in real time." Greystone Manor loomed in the fog like some grim sentinel, its windows aglow with strained lamplight, its gardens silent as though mourning. The constable led Poirot and Hastings up the stone steps and into the great hall, where family portraits stared down from gilt frames, their painted eyes watchful and unyielding. Superintendent Battle awaited them in the drawing room, solid, dependable, and without a shred of unnecessary flair. Battle was the very opposite of Poirot in demeanor. Yet the two men respected one another deeply. "Poirot," Battle said gruffly, shaking his hand. "Glad you came quickly. Nasty business here. Lady Winthrop, matriarch of the family, dead in her study. Doctor says heart failure, but I don't buy it." Poirot inclined his head. "Why not?" "Because," Battle said, lowering his voice, "there was a glass on her desk. Traces of something bitter. We suspect poison. And the family, Well, you'll see for yourself. Quarrels about inheritance, debts, grudges. Same as always in these big houses. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Hastings, do you hear? The diary we read. Already it aligns with reality. We must tread carefully. The study was a room of authority. Heavy oak shelves lined the walls, filled with volumes of law, history, and literature. A great desk stood at the center, its surface neat except for a few scattered papers, the glass, and a small vial uncorked. Lady Winthrop herself lay slumped in the chair, her face pale, her lips faintly discolored. Poirot bent close, observing every detail. His gloved fingers hovered above her desk, careful not to disturb a single item. She was writing, he murmured. Notice the pen upon the blotter. But this is not the golden pen. This is an ordinary fountain pen, black, with a simple nib. She was in the middle of a letter addressed to her solicitor. But look here. He pointed to the smudge upon the paper. A single word blurred, as though the writer's hand had faltered suddenly. Inheritance, Poirot read aloud. That was the last word she wrote. Hastings shifted uneasily. And the vial? Poirot picked it up delicately. Empty. Whatever it contained, it was consumed. The question is, did she drink willingly, or was it placed before her without knowledge? Battle crossed his arms. Servants say she rarely took anything but tea in the evenings. No reason for this glass to be here. We'll test it, of course. Poirot's eyes traveled to the shelves. He noticed a small gap where a book was missing. Curious. There was a book here, removed recently. Do we know which one? Battle shook his head. Poirot's gaze lingered on the gap. Every missing piece tells a story. We must find the book. The family gathered in the drawing room. That night was a tableau of tension. There was Charles Winthrop, the son, nervous, hands twitching as though some invisible weight pressed upon him. Beside him, Eleanor, the daughter-in-law, sharp-eyed and impatient, her jewels glinting harshly in the firelight. Then there was Henry, the nephew, a young man of careless charm but restless eyes, and finally Miss Clara, the longtime companion of Lady Winthrop, who sat quietly, wringing her handkerchief until it nearly tore. Poirot surveyed them with calm precision. He noted the way Charles avoided his wife's gaze, the way Henry smiled too easily, and the way Miss Clara seemed to shrink under the silence. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began softly. Lady Winthrop has died under circumstances that may not be natural. I will not accuse. I will only ask. Each of you will tell me what you observed tonight. One by one they spoke. Charles cleared his throat nervously. I was in the billiard room. I didn't see her all evening. Eleanor spoke quickly, sharply. I was in the drawing room, reading. I heard nothing unusual. Henry lounged back, his voice lazy. I was in the library. Books are safer company than family arguments. Miss Clara's voice trembled. I was with Lady Winthrop until just after 8. She dismissed me, said she wished to write a letter. I left her in the study. She seemed perfectly well. Poirot's eyes never left their faces. He saw the twitch in Charles's jaw, the flicker in Eleanor's eyes, the rehearsed ease in Henry's smile, and the deep sorrow in Clara's hands. When they finished, Poirot spoke only one word, interesting. Later, as Hastings and Poirot sat together, Hastings whispered, they all seem suspicious to me. Every one of them. Reminds me of Crooked House, a whole nest of possible murderers under one roof. Poirot nodded slowly. Yes, Hastings. But remember, truth is often concealed in the smallest detail. Tonight, it is the missing book that troubles me most. Battle entered just then, carrying a slip of paper. Poirot, search of the study, turned this up, hidden in a drawer. Look familiar. He handed it over. Poirot unfolded the paper. It was a page written in the same elegant script as the diary found in the British Museum. Hastings blanched. Good Lord. The same hand, Poirot read aloud. Chapter 2. The ink of suspicion spreads. The lady is dead. Her companions lie. Her family dissembles. And the book of truth is gone. Seek the one who fears the pen, for only they know what was written. The words echoed through the room, chilling in their certainty. Poirot's jaw tightened. So it is confirmed. The writer of the golden pen is present here, or close by. They watch us even now, recording each step as though it were a chapter in their tale. Hastings shuddered. It's like the murder of Roger Ackroyd all over again. The narrator himself hiding the truth. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Perhaps, mon ami, or perhaps the truth is far more dangerous. For when the pen writes, it does not stop until the final page is turned. That night Poirot could not sleep. He stood by the window, looking out at the fog that swirled around Greystone Manor. In his hand he still held the golden pen, its surface warm despite the chill. He whispered to himself, words only the night could hear. The writer believes themselves master of the story. But Hercule Poirot is no man's puppet. Let them write their chapters. I shall write the ending. And as the clock struck midnight, somewhere in the house a door creaked softly open, and a shadow moved unseen, carrying with it the ink of suspicion. The second act had begun. Chapter 3. The Script of Deception. The morning at Greystone Manor began with silence. A heavy, uneasy silence, the kind that seems to seep through the walls and linger in the corridors. The family gathered at breakfast, each member speaking little, their movements mechanical, as though every clink of silverware might shatter the fragile calm. Poirot and Hastings sat quietly, observing. Poirot's gaze wandered from face to face, noting every subtle shift of expression. Charles Winthrop's eyes darted nervously toward his wife, Eleanor, whose lips were set in a thin, determined line. Henry lounged back in his chair with deliberate nonchalance, though his hand tightened on his teacup at every mention of Lady Winthrop. Miss Clara kept her eyes down, her hands trembling as she buttered her toast. At last, Poirot spoke, his voice calm, but carrying across the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I must inform you that last night a most curious piece of evidence came into my possession. A note hidden in Lady Winthrop's study, written in the same hand as the diary found in the British Museum. Every head lifted. The air grew heavier. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. A note? And what did it say? Poirot studied her face as he answered. It said, Madam, that the ink of suspicion spreads, that the lady is dead, and that the truth is hidden in the absence of a book. Henry chuckled softly. Sounds like a piece of melodrama. Whoever wrote, it must think they're writing a novel. Perhaps, Poirot replied evenly. But novels, as we all know, often contain truths disguised as stories. Hastings leaned forward. Poirot, you think someone here wrote it? Poirot's eyes glinted. Hastings, mon ami. Who else could know the intimate details of the crime so swiftly? Yes, the author is close, very close. The room fell into a tense hush. Poirot allowed the silence to stretch, letting its weight press upon them. Then, in his measured way, he set down his napkin. I will begin my inquiries today. Each of you will speak with me privately. For now, I ask one question. Who removed the missing book from the study shelf? No one answered. Their silence was louder than words. Poirot's mustaches twitched slightly. Very well. The truth will reveal itself, as it always does. It is written in the script of deception. Later that morning, Poirot began his interviews. He chose first to speak with Miss Clara, the companion. She sat in the smaller drawing room, wringing her handkerchief as though it were the only anchor keeping her steady. Miss Clara, Poirot said gently, you were the last to see Lady Winthrop alive. Please, tell me exactly what passed between you. Her voice quivered. She seemed unsettled. Lady Winthrop was a stern woman, yes, but that night she was more than stern. She was frightened. She spoke of a letter she had received, something about being watched. She would not show it to me, but she tucked it into one of her books on the shelf. Poirot leaned forward. Which book? Clara shook her head helplessly. I do not know. She dismissed me before I could see. But I swear, monsieur, she feared something. Poirot nodded. Merci, mademoiselle. That is most useful. When Clara left, Hastings whispered, That settles it then. Someone sent Lady Winthrop a threatening letter, and the book containing it is gone. That's the link, Poirot. Perhaps Hastings. But remember, what is hidden is often more telling than what is shown. We must discover not only who removed the book, but why. Next came Charles Winthrop, the son. He entered stiffly, his face pale, his hands clenched at his sides. Mr. Winthrop, Poirot began, you are your mother's heir, yes? Charles shifted uncomfortably. Yes, though it is not as simple as that. My mother was difficult. She threatened often to alter her will. One never knew where one stood with her. Poirot raised an eyebrow. And last night, where did you stand? Charles swallowed hard. I told you. I was in the billiard room. Alone. There is no one to vouch for me. Convenient, Poirot murmured. Tell me, monsieur, did you know of the missing book? Charles frowned. Book? What book? Poirot studied him carefully. The man's surprise seemed genuine, but Poirot did not commit himself to belief. Charles's unease was evident, yet unease could come from guilt, or from fear of being accused. Eleanor Winthrop was next. She entered with a brisk confidence that seemed rehearsed, her movements sharp, her voice clipped. Let's not waste time, Monsieur Poirot, she said. My mother-in-law is dead. A tragedy, yes, but she was old, and her heart was weak. All this talk of poison and plots is unnecessary. Poirot regarded her calmly. Madam, you are most eager to dismiss the matter. That in itself is interesting. Her eyes flashed. I resent the implication. Implication? Poirot spread his hands. I have implied nothing. But tell me, where were you last night? I told the superintendent. In the drawing room. Alone. Poirot nodded slowly. And do you know anything of this missing book? Her gaze flickered, just for an instant, toward the shelves in the study beyond the doorway. No, she said quickly. Why would I? Poirot said nothing, but in his mind he recorded that fleeting glance. It was enough. Henry, the nephew, entered last. He strolled in casually, hands in his pockets, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Inspector Poirot, he said lightly, I must say, this is all very exciting. A mysterious death, a vanished book, cryptic notes. Sounds like the ABC murders all over again, doesn't it? Only this time, the stage is much smaller. Poirot's expression did not change. Indeed. And tell me, monsieur, where were you? The library, as I said. I enjoy a good book. No crime in that, is there? Poirot tilted his head. No, but perhaps there is crime in removing one. Henry laughed softly. You think I stole the missing volume? Hardly. I prefer to read, not steal. But Poirot noticed the faintest ink stain on Henry's cuff, a mark of someone who had been writing recently. Curious, Poirot murmured. You have ink on your sleeve. Henry glanced down, then shrugged. Old stain. Comes from taking notes. I dabble in writing myself, you see. Stories, sketches, little things. Nothing serious. Poirot's eyes glimmered. A writer, you say. Très intéressant. That evening Poirot gathered with Hastings and Superintendent Battle. The three men sat in the library, the fire casting long shadows. Well, Poirot, Battle said, what do you make of it? Poirot steepled his fingers. Each one has motive. Each one has opportunity. Charles, the heir. Eleanor, the daughter-in-law eager to secure her position. Henry, the nephew with debts and charm. Miss Clara, the companion perhaps too dependent on her mistress. But beyond motives, there is a greater thread. Someone here writes this story as though it were a novel. They set the scenes, Leave the notes, create the drama. Hastings leaned forward. You mean Henry? He admitted to writing. That ink on his sleeve proves it. Poirot shook his head gently. Do not rush, Hastings. Writers are many, but the true author of this script of deception hides carefully. Whoever it is, they have woven truth with fiction so seamlessly that even we may mistake one for the other. Battle frowned. Then what do we do? Poirot lifted the golden pen, holding it delicately in the firelight. We let the writer believe we are following their script, and when the final act comes, we shall be ready. At that moment, the butler entered, carrying a tray. A message for you, sir, he said, handing Poirot a sealed envelope. Hastings paled. Good Lord. They're watching us, Poirot. They know what we're doing, what we're saying. Poirot's eyes darkened. Yes, Hastings, and that is what makes this game most dangerous. The writer is not only recording the story, they are guiding it. And if we do not act wisely, the next chapter may end with another death. He placed the golden pen back into his pocket. But let them write. Hercule Poirot reads between the lines. And I promise you this, when the final page turns, it will not be the writer who controls the ending. It will be me. Outside, the fog rolled thick across the grounds. And within Greystone Manor, the script of deception continued to unfold. Every gesture, every word, every silence written as though inked by an unseen hand. Chapter 4. The Golden Truth Revealed. The storm came without warning. Clouds rolled over Hampstead, heavy and brooding, while rain lashed the tall windows of Greystone Manor. The sound echoed through its halls like the drums of war. The household gathered restlessly, each person locked in their private thoughts, each one stealing glances at Hercule Poirot, who remained impossibly calm. Hastings paced the length of the library. I don't like it, Poirot. Not one bit. We're being toyed with. These letters, these chapters, they're taunts. Whoever this writer is, they're pulling all the strings. And you, well, you sit there as if it's all under control. Poirot smoothed his mustache. But it is under control, Hastings. The writer believes themselves master of the game. They believe they are clever enough to dictate events. Yet, they forget one thing. Hercule Poirot always sees beyond the drama. Behind every mask, I see the face. Battle entered the room, then water dripping from his coat. His expression was grim. Another note has arrived. Hastings clenched his fists. Gold again. First a golden pen, now this. What on earth does it mean? Poirot held the note close to the firelight. Gold is a symbol. Hastings. It represents wealth, yes, but also vanity, pride, and deception. Whoever wrote this wishes us to think of riches. But I think rather of the golden pen itself, the key to all of this. Battle's jaw tightened. If you're right, then the killer is mocking us, hiding behind fancy words while Lady Winthrop lies in her grave. Poirot's eyes darkened. Not mocking, Superintendent. Revealing. But in riddles. That afternoon, Poirot summoned the family once more to the drawing room. The storm raged outside, but within, the air was still heavier than the thunder. The four suspects sat rigid, each one watching Poirot as though their lives depended upon his next words. Poirot stood at the mantelpiece, the golden pen in his hand. Mesdames et messieurs, he began softly. The time has come to reveal what I have discovered. Lady Winthrop's death was no accident. She was poisoned, and the killer is here among us. The script of deception has been written, but now the golden truth will be revealed. He turned first to Charles, the son. You, monsieur, had the most to gain. As heir, your debts vanish upon inheriting Greystone. Yet your alibi places you alone in the billiard room. Too convenient, perhaps, but your nature, Charles, is weak. A weak man may lie, but a weak man does not compose such elaborate games. Charles shifted uncomfortably. Poirot raised a hand. Non, Do not speak yet. He faced Eleanor next. Madam, you despised your mother-in-law. She belittled you, threatened to cut you out. You are sharp, clever, and capable of cruelty. But your glance when I mentioned a missing book betrayed you. You know more than you admit. Yet still, you are not the writer of this drama. Your deceptions are too direct, too forceful. The writer is subtle. Eleanor's cheeks flushed red. How dare you? Patience, Poirot said, his voice low. I do not accuse, not yet. He turned to Miss Clara, the companion. She trembled visibly, her handkerchief twisted in her lap. Clara, Poirot said gently, you loved Lady Winthrop. Too much, perhaps. Dependence can become desperation. You knew of the letter she received, hidden in a book. You feared what it contained. Did you take it to protect her, or to hide it? Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't take it. I swear. Poirot studied her for a long moment, then inclined his head. I believe you. For yours is the fear of innocence, not guilt. At last, Poirot faced Henry. The nephew reclined in his chair with exaggerated ease, though the muscle in his jaw twitched. Henry, Poirot said softly, you are the charming one, the careless one. But you are also the only one here who admits to writing. You claim it is mere dabbling, yet your cuff bore the stain of fresh ink. And these notes, the diary, the chapters, they read not like threats, but like a performance. They are written by one who delights in words, who revels in storytelling. You, Henry, are the writer. Henry's smile faltered. That's absurd, just because I like stories. Non, monsieur. It is not absurd. It is truth. Lady Winthrop received a letter, warning her that she was being watched. You placed it in one of her books. Later, you removed that book to hide your connection. When she drank the poison glass, you were in the library, pretending to read, but in truth, you were waiting for your story to unfold. The room erupted in murmurs. Eleanor gasped. Charles stared in horror. Clara covered her mouth. Henry's smile returned, brittle and cold. And what proof have you, Poirot? You're spinning a tale as fanciful as mine. Poirot lifted the golden pen. This, monsieur, this pen is no ordinary trinket. It was found in the British Museum, left as a clue. And upon its nib, there are traces of ink identical to that on your cuff. Ink of a rare composition, used only by certain collectors. And you, Henry, own such a set. Do you deny it? Henry's face hardened. The mask of charm slipped away, revealing something colder. So what if I do? That doesn't prove murder. Poirot's eyes gleamed. It proves authorship. And authorship, in this case, is guilt. You poisoned your aunt, Henry. You wrote the script. You cast the roles. You thought to control the ending. But you made one mistake. Henry leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. And what mistake is that? Poirot's voice dropped to a whisper. You underestimated Hercule Poirot. The storm outside broke with a crash of thunder, as though nature itself marked the revelation. Henry's composure shattered. He sprang to his feet, but battle was quicker. The superintendent seized him by the arm, pinning him in place. You're not going anywhere, Battle growled. Henry laughed bitterly, his charm gone. You fools! Don't you see? I was only writing the truth. She deserved it. She held us all in chains. My story was justice, justice in ink and poison. Poirot shook his head. No, monsieur. Justice is not yours to write. It is truth that writes itself. And the truth is clear. You murdered Lady Winthrop to free yourself from her grip and to craft a tale that would make you feel like a god. But you are no god. You are merely a criminal. Henry's eyes blazed with fury. Then finish the chapter, Poirot. Or on my end. Poirot's voice was calm, final. It is already written. Battle dragged Henry away, his protests echoing down the hall. The remaining family sat in stunned silence, the weight of revelation pressing upon them. Later, when the house had grown quiet again, Hastings approached Poirot. By Jove, Poirot, you had me on edge all the way through. But I still don't understand. Why all the theatrics? Why write notes, leave pins, play at authorship? Poirot gazed at the golden pen, now resting once more upon his desk. Because Hastings, for Henry the act of murder was not enough. He needed to elevate it to turn crime into art. He thought himself author, and us as characters. But murder is never art. It is ugliness, no matter how it is dressed. Hastings nodded slowly. And yet, you solved it. Poirot's mustaches twitched. Mais oui, because truth, Hastings, is always stronger than deception. The script may deceive, the pen may mislead, but the golden truth, that will always reveal itself. He placed the pen back into its case and closed the lid with a click. The case is not yet done. There will be trial, there will be judgment. But for us, Hastings, the curtain falls. We have read the script, and we have written its ending. Outside, the storm began to ease. The rain slowed, the thunder rolled away into the distance. And within Greystone Manor, the golden truth had been revealed, etched forever in the ink of justice. Chapter 5. The Last Page of the Golden Pen. The following morning broke with a pale and uncertain light. The storm had passed, leaving Greystone Manor wrapped in a stillness so heavy it seemed unnatural. The rain had washed the grounds clean, but inside the house, the weight of the night's revelations lingered like an unwelcome guest. In the library, Hercule Poirot sat alone. Before him lay the golden pen, glinting faintly in the sunlight that filtered through the high windows. Hastings entered quietly, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. "Poirot," he said cautiously, "I hardly slept. I kept seeing Henry's face, the way he changed in an instant when you unmasked him. He was charming one moment, cold as steel the next. If battle hadn't held him." Poirot raised a hand. "Oui, mon ami. The mask of charm can fall swiftly when truth presses against it. Henry believed himself a writer, an artist of crime. But in truth, he was only a poor player upon a stage too grand for him." Hastings sat down heavily. "Still, I can't help but feel sorry for him. To waste his life on such vanity, on poison and games." Poirot's gaze fell to the pen once more. "It is often vanity, Hastings, that drives men to their ruin. Vanity and pride, the oldest poisons of all. Gold blinded him, as he warned us it would. But he did not see that it blinded him most of all." The quiet was broken by Superintendent Battle's entrance. He looked tired, though satisfied. "Henry is in custody. He confessed this morning, at least in his own way. He spoke of authorship and chapters, as if murder were nothing more than literature. He feels no remorse." Poirot nodded solemnly. He never would. For Henry, remorse is not part of the story he wished to tell. Battle sighed. "He'll face justice, and that's enough. The Crown will see to it." He turned to leave, but paused. "I must say, Poirot, I've never seen a man so eager to turn crime into theater." It was chilling. Poirot gave a small smile. "Crime, my dear superintendent, is always theater. But some plays are tragedies from their very first line." Battle tipped his hat and departed, leaving Poirot and Hastings in the quiet once again. That afternoon, Poirot walked the halls of Greystone Manor one final time. The house, once full of tension and whispers, seemed hollow now, emptied of its secrets. He paused before Lady Winthrop's portrait in the drawing-room. Her painted eyes stared out with the same imperious pride she had carried in life. Poirot studied her expression. "You see, madam," he murmured softly, "you tried to control all around you, but in the end, it was your nephew's desire for control that destroyed you. You sought power in family. He sought power in ink. And both were undone by the same flaw, pride." Hastings appeared behind him, watching in silence for a moment. "You almost sound sad, Poirot." Poirot turned, his mustache twitching. I am sad, Hastings. Every crime is a tragedy, a failure of the human soul. But I'm also content, for truth has been served. That is all one can do. That evening, as the carriage prepared to take Poirot and Hastings back to London, Miss Clara approached them. Her hands trembled as she pressed a small box into Poirot's hands. "This belonged to Lady Winthrop," she whispered. "She would have wanted you to have it. It was found at her writing desk." Poirot opened the box. Inside was a slim, leather-bound notebook. Its first page bore an inscription in Lady Winthrop's hand. "Truth is the only story worth writing." Poirot closed the notebook gently. "Merci, mademoiselle. This is a treasure greater than gold." Clara's eyes shone with gratitude, though her voice shook. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Without you, we would never have known." Poirot inclined his head gravely. "It is not thanks you owe me, but thanks to truth itself. Live honestly, and you will honor her memory." As the carriage rolled away from Greystone Manor, Hastings leaned back against the seat. "Well, Poirot, another case closed, another villain unmasked, and another storm survived." Poirot chuckled softly. "Ah, Hastings, you make it sound so simple. Yet each case is unique, each puzzle its own. This one, it had the drama of the murder of Roger Ackroyd, the intricacy of the ABC murders, and the theater of murder on the Orient Express. But always at the heart, there is the same thing. The little gray cells must see what others do not." Hastings smiled. "And they always do." Poirot looked out the window, watching the countryside slip past. The golden pen gleamed faintly in his pocket, a reminder of the strange game Henry had played. "No story ends with perfection, Hastings," Poirot said softly. "But this one, at least, ends with truth. And truth, my friend, is the last page of every mystery." And so, dear listener, we close the final chapter of The Clue of the Golden Pen. Hercule Poirot has once again proven that no riddle is too obscure, no deception too deep, and no pen too golden to conceal the truth. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery with us, don't let the story end here. Subscribe to the channel for more tales of crime and deduction. Turn on notifications so you never miss a case, and share this mystery with fellow lovers of Agatha Christie. And remember, in every shadow lies a clue, in every silence a whisper of truth, waiting for you to discover. Until the next mystery, good night.